Hey everyone, this is AWS What's Next, and we're here to talk about some of the new Amazon EBS launches. I am Ana Cunha, developer advocate at AWS, and I'm joined here today by Suman Debnath, principal developer advocate at AWS, and our special guest, Ashish Palekar, director of product management and GM Snapshots. So there were some pretty exciting EBS launches yesterday on Andy's keynote, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into them. Thank you, Ashish, for taking the time to talk to us. I bet things have been pretty busy with so many launches going on. How are you doing?
Doing okay, and Suman, nice to see you guys, and hello to everyone out there. Yes, this is the busiest time of the year, but we wouldn't have it any other way. It's as Andy says it. This is our favorite time of the year. We get to announce and put forth a lot of the work that the team has done, and at the same time meet our customers and give them an update and hear from them about what they want and where they want to go. So very excited about about what we're doing here. So.
Great. Hello, everyone. Thanks, Ashish, for joining in, and thanks, Anna. And we are going to have some exciting, discussion on the announcements that we have on EBS.
Yep.
All right, cool. So let's get started. To those watching at home, you can tweet any questions you might have for us to the AWS On Air Twitter handle. So just to make sure everyone's on the same page, Ashish, can you tell us what exactly is EBS and how is it different from other storage services?
Absolutely. So let's start with a little bit of a broader perspective on our storage portfolio, right? So you have Amazon S3, which is our object storage. You have EFS and FSX, FSX for Windows, FSX Lustre, which are our file offerings. And then you have block storage. In addition, we have our archive object store, Glacier, right? And you have a whole host of data transfer services, right? So it's a pretty broad portfolio. Within that, if you think about block storage, what we specifically think about is four things. We think about EBS, so volume types and what we do there. We think about snapshots, which are copies of EBS volumes. We also think about instance storage, which is a form of block storage, right, with life cycle related to that of an instance. And then we think about some of our data services, things like elastic volumes and fast snapshot restore. So what EBS, for those that don't know, EBS is the persistent storage, persistent block storage connected that you use with your EC2 instances. So typically it's your boot volume. Customers use it for data volumes. It is used for a wide array of applications that I'm sure we cover in our discussions today. But it is super common for most customers who use EC2 instances to use EBS. And then snapshots are copies of EBS volumes that are stored on Amazon S3. Snapshots also form the basis of Amazon machine images, known as AMIs. And so if you are used to boot images, those are Amazon machine images, which in turn are snapshots. So that is EBS and sort of how it's different than our other storage services.
All right. And what exactly is new for EBS at this reInvent?
Oh, this has been a super busy time of the year. So we've had some exciting announcements, including some that hopefully folks saw in Andy's keynote yesterday. But we have launched some pretty substantial changes just in the last few days. So I'll just go down the list, and then we can obviously talk about them in more detail. So we launched GP3, which is our next generation general purpose volume type. We also, so that is announced and launched. We launched IOT Block Express in preview, and think of this as we launched IO2 in August, and now we're bringing a new set of feature capabilities on top of IO2. So we'll talk about that. We also launched together with our EC2 brethren, we also launched the R5B instance. So bringing a new tier of performance and capability to our customers. In addition, there's a whole bunch of things that we've done for cost savings. We have tiered IOPS pricing. We've also introduced lowering minimum sizes of SC1 and ST1, multi-attach on IO2, just a whole host of other things. But the big three are obviously GP3, IOT Block Express, and R5P. And so we'll go through those in some detail today.
Great. So I guess these two announcements or these two offerings which you have just highlighted would give our customer to make best use of EBS in terms of performance and price, especially for the customers who runs mission critical application, kind of OLTP, kind of application like database, SAP HANA, which are very much IOPS hungry. But given that fact, before we get in there, why you feel our customer love general purpose volumes, and why it is so widely used across the globe by almost every customers?
Yeah, so general purpose GP2 it was launched in 2014, and it was one of the first SSD only offerings really in the cloud. And if you look at GP2, it did some things amazingly well. And when I say that, it's like all credit to the team in terms of the work that they did. But what GP2 did really well is it made things simple in terms of storage. So all you had to do was select a capacity, and you got a certain amount of performance. So customers chose capacity, and you were able to go use that volume. Then the other thing that GP2 did was it had this concept of burst. And because it had the concept of burst, even for small volumes, so under 1 TB, you could use it for booting, you could use it for IO, you could use it for spiky workloads. And what that meant is across the spectrum, it was able to give good performance even for smaller volume. And the third is highly flexible. There isn't a workload today that doesn't get used on GP. And in fact, it's our default volume type for a reason. And so what that means is the GP2 volume sees a lot of things across a lot of workloads. And we love that customers use it, and we get really positive feedback from customers using GP2. So all those three characteristics of really simplicity, of the ability to work and provide enough performance at all sizes, and the flexibility, and all at a super compelling price point. It is 10 cents a gigabyte month, and so really saw a lot of customers building their workloads around GP2.
Right. Yeah. So now that we already have GP2 volume, which are backed by SSD and which offers single-digit millisecond latency and delivers a consistent baseline, performance, and it can burst, as you just mentioned, up till 3,000 IOPS. How we are improving GP2, and what next after GP2?
Sure. It's hard to go look at GP2 and go ask customers and say, what do we do better, right? Because there's always this notion of customers are divinely discontented, and that's awesome because we learn from it. And so we did probe customers and said, okay, what would you do differently about if you were to reimagine GP? And they really gave us three areas of feedback. So feedback number one that they gave us is most of the time, I have to, with GP, if I need more performance, I have to provision more capacity. And so once I have that performance, once I have that capacity, I can't actually change my capacity and go lower. And so what customers repeatedly told us is, give me higher performance without having to provision more capacity. So that was, I would say, feedback number one. Feedback two that we got is actually in a weird way. Some customers gave us feedback that, well, I don't actually need all the IOs that GP is using, especially for my colder workloads, right? And so my colder workloads need capacity. You're giving me way too much IOPS for those workloads. And so I would like to get something colder, ideally for a lower price point, right? And then the third area that we got feedback on is some customers want more predictability in their performance, and especially at the lower capacity levels. What we heard from customers was, can you give me more predictable performance so I don't have to deal with burst? Now, to be clear, in practice, that is not a customer is not it is not a common occurrence for customers to run out of burst. But yet you can understand, and we can understand why, especially if you're running some of those critical applications or databases, that you don't want to take that risk, and customers were looking for more predictability. So those were the three core areas that when we talk to customers about GP2, that we got feedback on.
All right, yeah. So what are some of the new use cases then that GP3 unlocks for our customers?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what GP3 is designed and how it is designed for. So that'll be super helpful. So then we can get to sort of what use cases work with it. Uh, so at its core, what GP3 does, and going back to the three issues I talked about, we started with, let's give customers from 0 to 16 terabytes, and which is the same as GP2. And what we did is provide a baseline of 3,000 IOs and 125 megabytes per second, right? So across the entire volume spectrum, we are giving you 3,000 IOs and 125 megabytes per second. So what that means is there is no burst, and you get essentially a flat IOPS and flat throughput across that spectrum. And then on top of it, what we then did is, by the way, most workloads should work within the 3,000 IOs and 125 megabytes per second, right? And so that is the vast majority of what we see. Um, then for customers who need more performance, what they can do is provision up to 16,000 IOs, so uh, 13,000 more than the 3,000 base, or up to 1,000 megabytes per second in terms of throughput. To put that in perspective, GP2 can do up to 16,000 IOs, so the IOs stay the same, but the throughput on GP3 is 4 times that of GP2. So we're almost quadrupling the throughput on GP3 relative to GP2. And so now customers can provision IOPS and throughput independently from capacity, right? If I go back to the problem statement, we've preserved simplicity because most volumes should not need provision, should not need to provision throughput or IOPS. So hopefully that helps. Then second, what we've done is we've eliminated burst, and so customers get standard performance. Third, if your volume is colder, now you can get that colder by not provisioning more IOPS. And then fourth, we are also giving customers the ability to provision more performance independent of the underlying capacity. Right. So from a design perspective, now we're building this building block and giving customers the flexibility. And the net result of that is actually our pricing is also simple, is also sort of giving that value back. So GP2, you had 10 cents a gigabyte a month, and it was capacity, performance, everything included. So on GP3, since we now can provision IOPS and performance separately, what we've done is we've lowered the capacity price point that customers will pay. So so our capacity price point, again based on US East 1 pricing, is 8 cents a gigabyte month. So that's a 20% savings for customers. Then our IOPS pricing is 0.005 per IO month, and our throughput pricing is 0.04 per megabyte second. So You can walk workload after workload, and there's already interestingly some threads on social media that do the compare. But we've made it simple for customers to save money by moving to GP3. By the way, the nice thing is using the capability of elastic volumes, you can go from GP2 to GP3 without impacting your application. Right. So single command, single click, you can change from GP2 to GP3. Just make sure you have the right IOPS and throughput that your application needs, and you can convert it inside. So pretty exciting to see that. So from a use case standpoint, well, Anna, was your question of like, okay, what does this mean for customers from a use case? Our goal is to make sure that it covers all the use cases that GP2 serves today, and make sure that that gets addressed. So customers will be able to use it for low to medium performance databases. Customers can use it for their transactional workloads that they need. Customers can use it for some throughput intensive, medium throughput intensive workloads. And again, providing the clear value proposition that the general purpose volume family continues to provide. So again, my expectation and our expectation is that GP3 will have the same wide array of use cases that customers can cover. And now it gives customers more flexibility than we were able to in GP2 to be able to adjust performance as they need it and then provision performance exactly as you need. So the customers can pay exactly, can right size and pay exactly what they need.
Excellent. So I think this is fantastic that now the customer do not have to add capacity to get the enhanced performance. So we are going with sustained performance of 3000 IOPS. So we don't have to think about burst and all. So you talked about how an existing customer can move to GP3 using elastic volume, but how one can get started with GP3 today for who are new to AWS or who are just getting started with any EC2 instance.
Absolutely. So just go directly to the EBS volumes page, and if you go to the EBS volumes page, right there, there's a description of what GP3 is. Go on to the AWS console, go to the volumes tab, try provisioning some GP3 volumes, play with it. It's available, and I completely encourage customers to use it. We absolutely would be thrilled to hear back from customers on what they're seeing and how things are going for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I tried after yesterday's announcement, I tried today morning and I did some FIO test. It was pretty amazing and it's completely seamless. It's very simple so for anyone who gets started to, get started with GP3 volumes. All right. So moving on from here, we also heard yesterday Andy talking about IO2 Block Express in his keynote, and that is something very very exciting, especially for enterprise class customers who are very much into performance and IOPS. So can you just walk us through what it is and a little bit about that particular addition in our block store?
Absolutely. So I want to touch on Andy's theme from the keynote yesterday. He talked about reinventing, and it's always interesting because block storage is absolutely foundational, and it's one of the most pervasive forms of storage, right? Like you see it everywhere. And so it's absolutely a joy to be able to, as an example, have the opportunity to reinvent GP2 to make it GP3, and then this next one is equally incredible. That's something that a lot of us are excited about. So let's start with the core problem statement, right? We launched if you think about, we launched IO2 in August of this year. And if you think about IO2 and what it does compared to IO1, IO1 has with the durability of essentially 3 nines of durability, and it gave you 50 to 1 IOPS to GB. IO2 gave you 5 nines of durability, so 100x better. 500 to 1 IOPS to GB, so 10x better than IO1, all at the same price as IO1, right? So again, we've made it super simple for customers to make the choice about using a volume that is giving you higher performance density and high durability. However, and by the way, to give a sense of the performance, IO2 gives you up to 64,000 IOs and up to 1,000 megabytes per second in terms of throughput. Now, that is a lot of IOs and a lot of throughput. However, what we see is customers who either have big applications need even more performance, right? And in fact, we regularly talk to customers who have databases that need 200,000 IOs, or they have volume capacity needs that are larger than 16 terabytes. Um, and and so we looked at that problem, and actually what ends up happening is some of these customers and some of these workloads end up staying on premises, and on premises they would buy storage area networks or SAN arrays, and use that array. Uh, our customers came to us and said, "Can you help me with those workloads?" And part of it is customers are looking to take advantage of the elasticity of the cloud, right? Which is spin up capacity as you need it, then spin it down as you don't need it. Then you can increase performance, you can reduce performance, you can change volume types, you can provision capacity as you need it, which is just not the flexibility that you've had with traditional SANs. And so our team took on that challenge, and that led to what we have is a new architecture called EBS Block Express, where we've taken all our learnings from customer workloads, uh, and the team has innovated to sort of build a hardware and software stack that can take advantage of the underlying performance. We coupled that with the learnings we had from our networking and Annapurna Labs team and our EC2 team, in terms of the protocol that we use, which we use the SRD protocol, the Scalable Reliable Datagrams protocol. And the combination of all of this allows us to bring what was IO2 volumes, which launched in August, onto this new architecture and this new capability, and allows us to support essentially up to 256,000 IOs, up to 4,000 megabytes per second, up to 64 terabytes of capacity, all at 5 nines of durability and sub-millisecond latency, right? And so now we have, Andy framed it yesterday, which is it's truly the first SAM built for the cloud, and that's our objective. Is could we build something that enables those workloads that traditionally have needed a SAN, and that is IOT Block Express, right? So super happy to give that as a next tier of performance to our customers.
All right, cool. Yeah, really, really awesome. So can you dive a little bit deeper into what is Block Express?
Yeah, so Block Express is really, think of it as an architecture that is at its core allowing us to separate compute from storage. And what it allows us to do is rewrite a ground up our software stack to take advantage of the underlying performance of the infrastructure. So and that, as I talked about, coupled with the innovations we had around our networking protocols, just allow us to deliver a level of performance that so far really has not been tapped into in the cloud. And so that, I think, fundamentally is what Block Express is, and that's how we are able to take advantage of what IoT Block Express provides.
Excellent. So I guess this is huge because in terms of performance, when we look into the numbers of IOPS and IO2 Block Express volume can give us, it's amazing, right? So I've been working in SAN since I started my career, and I seriously understand the need of a performance, which these kind of application demands. But given that fact, how IO2 Block Express actually works and how it is different, from IO2, which you have just explained. Tell us a bit about, few of the use cases or the applications which
Yeah.
we see that our customers are going to use for this particular volume type.
Absolutely. So, as a long-time storage person, Suman, it's a range, right?
Right.
And so let me walk you through sort of some scenarios some conversations that I would have with customers, right? Um, so, super common example is think of database workloads. We have customers who have really large database workloads. And when I say large in terms of capacity, in terms of IOPS, and in terms of throughput, right? Um, and and that range of database it can be from 5,000, 10,000 IOs, which is you could run on GP2 and now GP3, can run to 20, 30,000, 40,000 IOs, so it can run on IO2. But I also see some examples from customers who have databases in the 200,000 IO range, right? So it's the same database, but now it has this added dimension of more performance and more throughput. So the challenge that happens is if you have something that fits, so here's what customers would do, which is if customers had this large database, you'd really have two options so far, right? Like option one was you could stripe a large number of IO1 or now IO2 volumes together to get the IOPS and the throughput you need. But then that leads to complexity in terms of management. You're taking of snapshots is difficult. Things like doing EV are difficult. Then your second option becomes, well, I've got to go back and shard my database horizontally, right? Now, if customers can do it, that's awesome. But a lot of times that becomes a challenge. And so what ends up happening is you end up having to rework your database, which then makes it more complex for you to begin and sometimes expand your journey in the cloud. So the real driver and the real use case scenarios are those mission critical databases, your Oracle databases, your SAP HANA databases, um, all your SQL Server databases that need that level of performance, availability, durability. And so we're giving that IoT Block Express as a building block to enable you to bring those workloads without in a lot of cases having to go through that re-architecture, if you will. So that's the core of cool. Guys still there?
Right. Yes, right. Yeah, so I guess in terms of when you mentioned that we have customers who have different needs, and that is very important because not every customer needs same type of performance and capacity requirement, especially when we have customers ranging from startups to enterprise, right? And now
Yeah.
we have a spread of different volume types, and the customers can select whatever suits them the best, right? But when I think about any enterprise and when I think about SAN, one thing is always persistent is to configure and manage any SAN system and provision storage. And that is very very painful. So how our customer can get started with IO2 Block Express. I'm very sure it is just like any other volume type that we have.
That's
But
correct. That's
can you just
exactly right.
share some thoughts? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's dive into it a little bit. I first want to again reiterate: IOT Block Express is in preview, and so so there's a link. If you again go to the EBS volumes page, IOT Block Express is on the page. There's a link that takes you to a sign up. You can sign up, and once you sign up, then during preview within your account, all essentially IOT volumes created will be IOT Block Express volumes. And to your point, Suman, to a customer, this is the beauty of it, right? Like, so if just comparing, let's compare and contrast to the SAN universe that a bunch of us have spent some time in, right? You would have to go procure an array, then migrate your data into this array. Then that array would have a lease life cycle of 3 to 5 years. By the way, some of it again you're losing in the migration time itself. Uh, Heaven forbid you misforecast your capacity. Now you have to go to another procurement cycle, either to get more disk shelves or to get a different array, right? Which is another giant challenge. And then 3 to 5 years later, you're ready to begin that journey again. And by the way, like during this time, the performance of your array is basically the same. It isn't changing, right? If now compare and contrast that to what you're getting here, which is you go to a console, literally create a volume, and the volume's there. And if you need more, you create more, you spin up more, and it's there. When you don't need it, you spin down, and you don't spend any amount. Essentially, you don't pay for that performance or pay for that capacity. So uh, it is a radically different way to consume storage. And not only are you converting from capex to opex, but in the case of opex, you're using it when you need it, which further reduces your cost profile, right? You can provision performance as you need, you can provision capacity as you need, and so those advantages of agility and flexibility are just different. And yes, to your point, it is exactly like provisioning a volume, and you're off to the races. So again, like incredibly excited to see this in customer hands. We would love to see what customers are going to go do with it. So
So we're giving all this flexibility and performance to our customers, but how can they take advantage of it from EC2 instance standpoint?
yeah. So now you could. That's exactly the right question, Anna. Right? Like, which is okay. So you talked about this GP3, which gives you 1,000 megabits per second and 16,000 IOs. Then you drop this IOT Block Express on me, where you can get 256,000 IOs and 4,000 megabytes per second. What do I do with it from an instance perspective? So there we partnered with our EC2 team, and yesterday launched a new instance type called the R5B, right? To put this in, to give a little bit of perspective and the context. So to think about EC2, connect connecting to EBS volumes, have a throughput and an IOPS pipe. We call EBS optimized throughput and EBS optimized IOPS. So on R5, the maximum throughput and IOPS that you can get is you can get 2375 megabytes per second, or and 80,000 IOPS, right? So which means if you attach 3, 4, 5 EBS volumes, that is the aggregate IOPS and throughput you could get from an R5 instance, right? Our customers came to us and said, "Well, I'm consuming a lot more of EBS, and in fact, they have workloads where they could see bottlenecks in their in the EBS optimized throughputs and IOPS." So we took that feedback, and one of the things that we did is launch R5B. With R5B, you can now get up to 260,000 IOPS and up to 7,500 megabytes per second, right? So we've more than tripled the throughput and IOPS that is coming from a single EC2 instance to EBS volumes. So suddenly, by the way, now to your question, If you think about the R5B instance going to an IOT Block Express volume, uh, that is 260,000 IOPS going from an instance, and the volume can support up to 256,000 IOPS. So you're able to take advantage of that even from a single instance, which is pretty game changing, we think, from a customer standpoint. So, by the way, the advantage of doing this is if you had storage limited workloads, previously you would have to shard them across instances. You would have to bring them. So now you're managing more instances, you're paying more cost, and by the way, depending on the commercial software you have, you're paying more licenses. Now is the opportunity to consolidate those into something like R5B. So you're managing fewer instances, you're paying less EC2 costs, and at the same time, you're also paying fewer license fees, right? So it's a win-win proposition from a customer standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, it seems not only we're making things easier for our customers, but we're also helping them save.
Yeah.
So, what are some other key ways in which EBS is helping customers reduce their spend on AWS?
Yeah, so I want to first say we do all our things are focused on how we make customers' lives better and hopefully save them cost return. So it's hard to separate those. But I did talk about a few things that are important, like GB3. We think it is giving you better performance at a lower cost. So right there, I think will be a big needle mover for customers. Um, Now I talked about IO2 and IO2 Block Express. So we've done one additional thing that hopefully saves customers money. We have introduced tiered IOPS pricing for IO2 and IO2 Block Express. So what this means is between 0 and 32,000 IOs, you will continue to pay 6.5 cents. Again, US East 1 pricing. And then between 30% less, which is 4.6 cents per IO. And then from 64,000 up, you pay an additional 32% lower at 3.2 cents a gigabyte month, 3.2 cents per IO. So what we're doing is making it easier for customers to get higher performance workloads for cheaper on AWS. So that is what we did on IO2. Earlier in November, so we're doing two more. If you think about our volume portfolio, we have our stream volumes, ST1 and SC1, so throughput optimized and core HDD. So earlier in November, we dropped the price on our core HDD by 40%, right? So the price of a core HDD was 2.5 cents per gigabyte month. We dropped it to 1.5 cents a gigabyte month. And so we're directly passing that savings on to our customers. But on streaming, we're doing one additional thing, which is at reInvent, we are reducing the minimum size on ST1 and SC1 from 500 GB to 125 GB. So it's a 75% reduction, right? So you say, well, what does that mean? Let me put these two things together. Imagine a customer wants to provision 100 GB of core HDD. Okay. Prior to these two changes, they would provision 500 GB and they would pay 2.5 cents. Right. So they're paying a total of $12.5 a month for that 500 GB, right? Or which they needed. Today, they would provision 125 GB at 1.5 cents, which means they're paying $1.875 per month. That is an 85% reduction in cost, right? So again, this is a third way that we are saving cost. But we're not done yet. There's two more things, right? So on snapshots, one of the things that customers came and said was, you get like I take a lot of snapshots, and there's just a wide amount of proliferation of snapshots. So we heard that feedback, and what we built in July of 2018 is snapshot data is essentially Amazon Data Lifecycle Manager. And so Data Lifecycle Manager, or DLM, is a policy engine that allows you to take snapshots and delete snapshots on a schedule, right? So you can set a policy, and then you can set a retention based on counts of snapshots. You can set a policy based on the age of the snapshot. So you can say, I want to keep 10 snapshots in a lineage, or I want to keep 5 snapshots. I want to keep a snapshot for 10 days, and that policy will work. We've continued to enhance DLM by adding in multiple policies, by giving customers the ability to take dailies, weeklies, monthly, scheduling copies across regions. So DLM has become a central tool for a lot of customers in order to manage the lineage of snapshots and therefore manage costs. Customers came back to us and said, well, thank you for managing snapshots. What about Amazon Machine Images or ARMIs? Because ARMIs, which are backed by snapshots, customers are running into exactly the same problem, which is how do I create ARMIs all the time? They proliferate. When I delete an ARMI, when I deregister an ARMI, I potentially can't clean up the snapshots. And so that generally was a challenging process for customers. So the team thought about it and has extended now at which happened just before reInvent. We've now extended DLM to support armies, and so you can now set lifecycle policies on your Amazon Machine Images and therefore manage costs. Okay. Last thing, which is now putting all this together, customers came and said, well, it's fantastic that you're helping us do all these things and manage costs. How about you figure out when we are over provisioning or under provisioning storage? And so we've done precisely that in partnering with the Compute Optimizer team. In AWS Compute Optimizer, we now have support for EBS recommendations. So now within Compute Optimizer, you will get recommendations for which instances to use, whether you need a bigger instance or a smaller instance. Then we have extended that with adding support for GP2. So if you are running out of capacity, running out of IOPS or throughput, Compute Optimizer will tell you. Then on IO1 and IO2, it'll keep track of IOPS and tell you if you need more or you're over provisioned, which means you can reduce and save cost. And then same on GP3, right? Compute Optimizer will look at your volumes and give you recommendations on how you can reduce your IOPS and throughput. So bringing the power of machine learning and our knowledge of looking at thousands of workloads to customers and automating how they can save money on their EBS usage. It's a pretty compelling thing for customers to go use. So we're excited to bring all these things that save customers cost and can't wait for them to take advantage of it, frankly.
Absolutely. So I guess this is fantastic that now the customer can get more with less because that is always the case for any customer for any of the service that they use on AWS. And you also talked about the integration of EBS with AWS Compute Optimizer. That itself is a great integration and innovation. Now, speaking about innovation at AWS, we keep on overwhelmed by the number of announcements every reInvent, and I'm very sure it is still day one, as we say, right? So given that fact of EBS and GP3 and the new IOT Block Express, what are the other key innovation that the EBS team has come up with, which our customer can take advantage of?
Yeah, so definitely want to make a couple of big call outs, which are important for customers to recognize. So already we talked about IO2, which was a big improvement for customers. Then we have had a couple of pretty big releases through the year, and then I'll speak about what we're doing at reInvent. So one is earlier this year we announced multi-attach. To give you the problem statement, EBS volumes could be attached to a single EC2 instance, right? However, customers came to us and again said, we want to protect against instance failover and want to see if we can recover faster. Can you help us? And so what the team did is build multi-attach, so you can now attach to 16 Nitro instances. We've had some very creative usage from customers. We see examples of customers who are using it to transport between instance sizes. We have examples of customers who are using it for their machine learning workflows. It is pretty amazing to see how customer usage of multi-attach has continued to grow. Then at reInvent, we are taking that feature and essentially bringing it to IO2. At reInvent, we will launch we've launched IO2 on multi-attach for IO2. So happy to bring that same capability to IO2. And as we talked about in Jeff Barr's blog and other things, we'll bring those capabilities down the road to IOT Block Express as well. But that is something that is pretty important to customers. The second thing I want to make sure I touch base on is fast snapshot restore. Customers often used to try to restore snapshots into volumes, and snapshots data from snapshots is lazy loaded into volumes, and so which means we load it in the background, and sometimes if you access a portion of the disk that is not yet loaded from the snapshot, you encounter a higher latency, which is what we call a get fault. And so in that scenario, customers who are sensitive to that, by the way, this works for most customers. Some customers have workloads that are sensitive to that. And what they would do is use an instance connected to an EBS volume and essentially use a tool like IOmeter or FIO and do a block walkthrough of each block, therefore forcing the load. So we looked at that problem, and this was last reInvent, we announced a capability called Fast Snapshot Restore. And what Fast Snapshot Restore does is it allows customers to choose a snapshot and enable it for Fast Snapshot Restore within an availability zone. And after that, you have the ability to launch volumes from that enabled Fast Snapshot Restore. So this year, what we've done is we've extended Fast Snapshot Restore, so you can now enable Fast Snapshot Restore on shared snapshots, which means you can launch volumes in a different account. So that's pretty exciting, and we love seeing what customers are doing with that to reduce their launch times, reduce their development times. It's pretty exciting. And the third one I want to touch base on, which is pretty cool, is if you think about snapshots. Snapshots up until late last year, the only way you could take a snapshot was from an EBS volume, and the only way you could access the data from a snapshot was to restore it to an EBS volume, right? Customers came to us and said, well, we have use cases where we can use the snapshot without ever having to create an EBS volume. And so these are things like backup recovery, things like restores. And so what we launched at reInvent last year was the ability, what we call EBS direct APIs, the ability to read data from a snapshot and get the delta set between a snapshot and another snapshot, so that you can do a compare against them. So that launched at reInvent, but we followed it up earlier in July of this year with the ability to write snapshots directly. So now you can access snapshots without ever having to create an EBS volume. So you can read, you can write, you can compare. And so the cool thing is this now enables customers to actually write snapshots from any block storage. And so that is an incredibly exciting capability for us as well. We're still learning. We're seeing how customers use it. But again, just to highlight the ways in which the EBS team has continued to innovate and to use Andy's word, reinvent what it means to use EBS and snapshots.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it has been a pretty busy year for the EBS team innovating on behalf of our customers.
I would
Ashish,
say,
do you have any other callouts?
no, I would say a little bit busy for us, but no, it is extremely exciting. So no, I would say no the call outs, but to your question, it is extremely exciting to be able to bring this set of capabilities to our EBS and snapshots and AWS customers. And truly, to our listeners and to our customers, really want to thank them for continuing to provide us feedback, continuing to use the products and the services, and continue to drive us to innovate on their behalf. As we say around in AWS, 90% of our roadmap is exactly what customers tell us, and then the remaining 5-10% we innovate on their behalf. And some of this is just directly the result of what our customers are telling us is important to them. So we're pretty excited to bring this to our customers.
All right. Thank you so much, Ashish, for taking the time to talk to us today. I encourage everyone to check out the blog posts on IOT Block Express and GP3 volumes. A lot of stuff going on. And that's it. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Bye.